Hello, friends, and welcome back to Page Chewing. We are here today to discuss part 3 of All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy. And we're kind of reading this book together, doing part by part, one part a week. And I think it's a pretty good pace. There's a lot to digest, especially from this last part. So I'm not sure if we'll do part by part for the second and third book. Let me know what everyone thinks. I'm not sure if it's something that there seems to be a fair amount of interest in it. It's kind of weird doing a podcast because it just kind of goes into the ether and there's not always feedback. So, but let me know if you are enjoying this or not, and then we can go from there on whether or not we'll continue this throughout the trilogy. So part 3, things start to happen for sure. So let's start with Blevins. We left off on part 2 or chapter 2 with them being taken, and come to find out that they are being hunted, in part because of what Blevins has done. Blevins comes back into the fold, and I love the interaction between Rawlins and John and Blevins about how the things that he's done, and he's just so unassuming and oblivious to how serious the situation is, and they quickly understand how serious it is. But with Blevins, the things that he does, he's just so, he's like a child. He doesn't really understand. It seems like the consequences of his actions to him is just I killed him. Like I shot him. So I go back and forth on Blevins and the way that it was handled. Because when they are taken, they're driven out to the field. First they're questioned, and then, they're separated, they're questioned, then they're taken out into the field. Blevins is taken by himself into the field, or out into the field by some trees, and everyone knows what's going to happen. I think everyone knew what was going to happen. Blevins wasn't going to come back. So there are a couple of things that made this Blevins' death effective. Or of course it was effective because he was a character that we all, kind of grew to enjoy, at least I think most people would, is that it took a while before the gunshots rang out. And when the gunshots did, it took a while. So you wondered what's happening between that period of time, between when the gunshots rang out, or the gunshots rang out, and when they got to the kind of the clearing with the trees in it. And I think it was more effective it happening off the page than on the page for Blevins' death. I think him disappearing, us not seeing really what happens and wondering what happens to him in between his death or him being executed. And, I think that's has more of an impact, I think, because you don't know exactly what's happening. And you don't know exactly what happened to him, and they're afraid to ask exactly what happened to him. They're just trying to survive themselves because they know that if they fight too much, if they protest too much, they're next. And we quickly go from Blevins being executed to them then ending up kind of as prisoners, or at least captives, being told to leave. And then they're taken to the prison, where I think the most interesting interaction here was between John and Perez, because they have the conversation about, well, first John and Rawlins have to, they have to fight their way through. They have to fight to survive. They're being beaten, they're being injured, they're being stabbed, and the interaction between Perez and John, I think, was a very important conversation, because I think it paints the picture of that they're in this world they don't understand. They don't understand the people there. They don't understand that these people don't have the luxury of looking away from things that they don't want to deal with. And I think that conversation, that interaction was fascinating. I think especially the way that Perez had kind of presented to John, and Americans are superstitious people, they're godless people, because they believe that, a car has some kind of personality, or that a car can decide to not work, or to the color, like a color of something. Like they have the luxury of thinking of things this way, that oh, it's, instead of things just being what they are, and accepting things for what they are, they find a way to kind of to twist it around and to not have to face reality sometimes, and to put kind of these superstitions on things that make them feel better, instead of just accepting reality. And these other people, they don't have the choice. They have to face reality. They can't look away. They don't have that luxury. They don't have that ability. They don't have that privilege to just look away. I think that was a great interaction that really paints the picture of, John and Rawlins, where they came from and what they're dealing with now, that they're completely out of their element, and they really are out of their depth with who they're dealing with and the situation that they're in. They somehow, and Perez, I think, was a great character too. I think we'll see more of him later. He seems like too much of an important character. We've gotten too much background on him for him not to come back at some point. At least, I hope so, because I think he was a fascinating character with his background, with his political background, and the power that he has in the prison, the way that he's maneuvering and the way that he's operating. And so I think that was the most interesting part for me in this section, is that interaction and the contrast that's drawn between the people and the way that we deal with things and they deal with things, and the ability to look away. Like I said, I think that was great. I love that interaction. So beyond that, then they're trying to find a way out of the prison, and of course John is attacked, and he's attacked by a hired assassin to kill him, and he somehow manages to survive, and to not only survive but also kill his attacker. And that was another great action scene and I say action scene, but the fight. I think it's hard to write a fight. It's hard to write an effective combat scene, a scene of two people fighting to the death. Like one of them is going to die. You're not going to have. They're both not going to walk away, no matter what, because it's set up there to empty. Everyone has gone, and John realizes that everyone knows what's happening except for him. They know that he's come to kill him. Everyone has prepared for it. Everyone's looked away. Everyone has emptied out. And the silence of the room kind of tipped him off to, okay, I see what's happening here. And this is happening. The way that John is able to, not only he's injured, but he fights his way into able to stab the assassin in the heart. And I think another great section in this was the amount of blood that was everywhere. Not only blood that John, because he was stabbed and he was injured, not only that blood, but the blood of his assassin that he stabbed in the heart. And as his body fell on him and bled all over him, his clothes were soaked in blood. And I think that really, and for me anyway, it gave me a really sense of how, he's walking in the yard just dripping with blood, not only his blood, but his assassin's blood. And he's kind of like, what now? Like, is it just time to die? Or is it time? What do you do in that kind of situation when you're almost dead yourself and you barely made it out alive and you're in this dangerous place? The fact that he was able to survive is, I think, I think that was a great scene as well there too. Just really, really great. And the fact that they're still looking for their horses, and they still value their horses. Going back to what we've talked about before, and the other two parts, is the amount of value they put on horses. They're not just animals, or they're not just pets. They're a way of life. They're their lifeblood. They're something that they depend on for all these other reasons. And I think that was the fact that they're still looking for their horses. They're in this life and death situation. They're being captive. They were captured. They're on the verge of possibly being assassinated and executed, and they're looking for their horses. I think that was another kind of tip off to the name of the book. That's something I try to look for in things that I read. I'm not sure if you do too. Let me know if that's something you do too. So that was another scene. And of course, then they are taken, John and Rawlins, after they've been beaten, stabbed, and almost, killed. They're taken away, and they're given some money, and they're able to eat some steaks and to escape on a bus. And, it pays to have people that you kind of befriend earlier, because they do come through, and their old friend comes through for them to get them out of prison and to get them released. And now it looks like John is heading out on his own, and, he's trying to get his stitches removed. And the dialogue between the characters is just fantastic. The little talk they have about stitches, very matter of fact, very, oh, it's going to hurt. Like, it's going to hurt you more to get them removed than it did to get them in. And just that very kind of cold, but still caring for each other dialogue that they have, I think is just great. And yeah, I just love their interaction. All the different character interactions written beautifully. I just love it. And of course, the environments, the feeling you get, the kind of when you're there in prison, you feel the confinement, you feel the limitations, you feel the danger constantly. I think it's just, again, it's a testament to this fantastic writing that just, you read certain things, it just makes you happy to read certain things because it's done so well. And you really appreciate the presentation and the quality of the writing. And this is no exception, of course. Really loving this book. Loving this book. I'm really glad I picked this one up. And so we leave off with John kind of heading out on his own. It looks like Rawlins is heading out on his own, and John gives him some money for his journey. But I'm a little sad that they're going to separate. I don't know if they are or not, but it looks like they are, and that bums me out. I hope they stay together, because I love the interaction and the friendship that those two have. But John is going to definitely have more to his story than as we go. But yeah, starting to kind of reflect on his journey, his character journey, and where he's headed now. I'm really just looking forward to seeing what happens next. So if you are reading along with me and you would like to comment, please there's a link down below to send a message to me directly, or you can send a DM to me on the forums, or of course on the thread we have for this book to discuss each part, or let me know what you think, what your thoughts are, if you're enjoying it, if you're not, why you are, why you aren't, and if you're enjoying the part by part kind of system we have, if we should continue this or just kind of go end of book discussion when we're done reading the book, for those of you who are reading along with me. So yeah, let me know if you're a first-time reader like me, or you're a rereader. I would love to hear from you. Let me know that I'm not speaking into the ether. I'm not talking to myself, at least on a podcast anyway. But yeah. So thanks again for listening. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next part brings us, and we will talk again next Wednesday for part number 4. Thanks for listening, and we will talk to you very soon.